started and we only have 4 left.
Yes.
Which I was like...
So,
I think I'm leading the next 2.
Yeah, you've got the next 2 weeks, and then Kim has the last 2.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was like...
That'll be perfect.
Like, oh man, like... She did this right. I can handle this, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Okay, well, my camera's going to be off for just a little bit because I'm just finishing up my lunch like a crazy person. But
that's usually what I'm doing.
And my camera will be back on in a couple minutes.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, mine's still broken. I believe that was me and Tina's goal from last year. Our last book study was lunch.
To eat lunch before the book study. Hi, bud. What's going on? Oh, you're supposed to be asleep. That's my son. He he woke up with a fever. So yeah, no. Okay, so there's this like cool thing, but I'm just gonna do slideshow. Okay, can you guys see this?
Yes, we can.
Okay, awesome. And now I wish that I had here, just a second.
Just because I always feel weird about this, I have it up on the big screen, so if I'm looking at this screen, that's why I'm weirdly side of my face.
It's okay, okay. Here. Now I need to give you something. Okay, we'll use that in a second. But all right. Okay. So, rule 1, part 2. And you know what? This was really, really interesting and really enjoyable to read, I thought. Have you guys all read it?
Yes, I loved this section.
Yeah, I did too. Like, I was like really like, wow, this is like so much cool stuff. So I'm super excited to dive into it because there's a lot of cool stuff. First of all, Melissa Cosgrove said that when we get our transcripts from NNU, please send a copy of them to her so that she can enter them in Skyward. I think we already knew that, right? Anyway.
I'm glad you brought that up because I actually, for some reason I thought NNU would like contact each of you, but you just need to contact them and then they'll have the credits there for you.
Okay, so like probably when this one is done, just
so this one won't be available probably until the end of May, to be honest. But if you did Atomic Habits and got credit for it, that one should already be available.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. All right. Now this is something that I really, really loved. The relationship between deep work and collaboration is tricky. And I was like, yeah, like how do you do deep work when like and not get totally sidetracked when you have other people doing it with you, right? Like it seems really, really, really tricky. So he talks about Facebook and their headquarters, which I thought was super intriguing. So if you would click on the link that I put in comments, and we're going to watch, and the link says, how does Facebook's campus spark deep work, and how does it discourage deep work? Okay, so I just want you guys to just make your thoughts maybe while the movie's going or after or whatever. And I'll show you this video. I don't know how to do this. I'll be honest. I just hope it works. So help me out, okay? Can you hear it?
Yes.
Right in the heart of Silicon Valley, Facebook is cooking up a big new project to expand its Menlo Park campus into what can only be described as a fully fledged town. Since humble beginnings in Zuckerberg's Harvard dorm room, Facebook HQ has passed through a number of short-lived locations. Rapid growth led to years of hopping from one office to another. However, the roots are only getting deeper in their current location, and it's not hard to see why. Facebook's campus sits in a not-so-little corner of Palo Alto, and the entirety of its construction has been built around the well-being of the people that make the company tick, the employees. Stepping away from canning workers into grey cubicles like sardines, Facebook's HQ follows an open-plan, natural light-filled, home-away-from-home approach that encourages creativity, collaboration, and good vibes only. Close to the banks of San Francisco Bay, Facebook's Menlo Park, or MPK campus, sprawls across hundreds of acres and is split into 3, soon-to-be 4 sections. The official HQ, known as the firm's East Campus, was where it all started. 2,000 Facebook employees migrated over to the 11 revitalized buildings in the closing months of 2011. And since then, the already amazing space has reformed into a product of the people who roam its many common places. Employees are allowed to and are actively encouraged to hack their spaces, be it by painting their desk pink or moving a filing cabinet to the corner to make way for a new cactus. Facebook HQ feels more of an institution than an office. There's even an old closet that went from housing a few board games to becoming a kitted-out arcade, complete with Dance Dance Revolution and a few other old-school classics. What more could you possibly want? The buildings of the East Campus surround a huge courtyard, and instead of filling this space with eye-candy landscaping and benches that nobody would sit on, Facebook built their very own Main Street, a small town of sorts that's been based on Palo Alto's actual Main Street. Main Street offers staff a place to grab a coffee, hang out between meetings, and meet colleagues for collaboration. There's a main plaza, a number of eateries, and also a health centre where employees can pick up medications or even see a doctor. Facebook's East Campus reinvented what a company HQ could look like, and the ethos of creating workspaces that genuinely excite and inspire has been followed throughout its many expansions. Known as MPK20, Facebook's second location sits just a stone's throw away from HQ, on the other side of the Bayfront Expressway. The building was designed by Canadian architect Frank Gehry, and at the time of completion, it was the world's largest open-plan office. The goal of MPK20 was to create the perfect engineering space for Facebook's teams to work together and bounce ideas off one another. The single-room office houses no less than 2,800 employees, and teams are encouraged to mix with those from other departments. Despite its huge size, the building itself went from drawing board to completion in just 3 short years, which was mostly thanks to the minimalist and stripped-back approach. The bulk of the materials used were readily available metal, concrete, and glass, which reduced the construction time to an absolute minimum. Zuckerberg commented on the building, saying, "It's pretty simple and it isn't fancy, but that's on purpose. We want our space to feel like a work in progress. When you enter our buildings, we want you to feel how much left there is to be done in our mission to connect the world." Although the building itself is amazing in its own right, one of the best features of MPK20 is its 9-acre, 36,000 square meter rooftop garden. The elevated paradise covers the entire roof and feels like a true out-of-town park with its mature trees and native shrubbery. The rooftop garden is the perfect place to take a blue light break and also contributes to the building's LEED Gold certified status by insulating the building naturally, which greatly reduces heating and cooling demands. The designers of MPK20 worked very closely with Facebook to reduce the building's environmental impact, and together they realized this goal in stunning fashion. The building features a reclaimed water system that saves around 17 million gallons of water each year, 1.4 megawatts of photovoltaic solar panels that generate almost 2 million kilowatt hours of electricity every year, and huge windows that bring in ample sunlight, reducing electricity usage significantly. The rate of Facebook's never-ending growth shows little sign of slowing down. If anything, it's only getting faster. There are already more than 10,000 people working out of Facebook's forward-thinking campus. However, this number is set to stretch beyond 30,000 over the next 10 years, facilitating the need for another expansion project that will turn the social network's HQ into a full-scale community. Unveiled in 2017, the proposed Willow Campus will be Facebook's biggest project to date. The new venture will feature more than 1.75 million square feet of office space, 125,000 square feet of retail space, and 1,500 housing units, 15% of which will be sold well below market value. The town will also benefit from all the amenities a suburb of this size undoubtedly needs. We're talking supermarkets, health centres, sports grounds, and maybe even a school. Facebook's big picture goal is to create a vibrant and integrated mixed-use village that will provide much-needed services, not only for Facebook's growing workforce, but for the surrounding local community as well. Facebook aim to break ground before 2021. However, it's unclear whether or not they're on track for this milestone. Regardless, the huge development is planned to be phased in over the next few years, starting with the office spaces, housing and retail units, followed by further expansions in the subsequent years until the nostalgic nod to the working towns of yesteryear is complete.
Okay, wasn't that awesome? And a little intimidating, I think.
I posted in there. It started out really cool. I was like, yeah, let's have Clayton sign up, and then they started to go into corporate takeover of everything, and it got kind of scary.
Yeah.
Especially since that's kind of happening with Amazon in our own backyard in the canyon, whether we're aware of it or not.
Right. Right. Okay, let's go ahead and Jamboard your thoughts about it.
One thing I was thinking too, I put up my Jamboard thoughts, but in addition to those, I do think it's tricky nowadays or I should say, I think it's easy to sell cost effectiveness as open-mindedness. Because like they are having that open layout, and yes, it's for collaboration, and I do believe that, but I also believe like that's incredibly cost effective for them when it comes to constructing an office.
Right, because they don't have to build like walls.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think that, and that kind of can play over into anything, but just what can be sold as one idea, but it really can have so many different intents.
Yeah, and honestly, actually, kind of to build off that too, it's almost like you can't escape work. Work is now your net. We're building everything around work. You live in work apartments, and then you come down to work apartments, and then you shop at the work store, and it's Facebook, and you just see, yeah.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking about.
Like the China factories totally have that. You live where you work, and you can't leave. Especially with COVID.
Yeah, that's not really the direction I want us to go.
Right, it's very anti-family and anti individuals and.
Right.
Don't we already live where we work now?
Yeah.
Which I think actually is. I've always said this about virtual, teaching virtually, is that's I think a big thing is stopping work when you're at home.
Right.
So it is an issue for us.
It's a huge
we're always
issue.
At work. Yeah.
It's a huge issue. And that's what I've said several times. I'm like, the cool thing about my job is that work is always there. And the not cool thing about my job is that work is always there.
Yeah, I think I told my students, this guy in assembly today, I just mentioned this, all the students was like, I'm like you, it's really cool. Online work is super flexible, but the bad side is it's super flexible.
Right.
If you don't do it in the morning, you can do it in the afternoon, but you have to do it in the afternoon. You have to get it done. And,
exactly. It's super flexible, but then it's also super flexible, right? And you end up doing stuff like Tamara did, where you're going with your son to the the doctor, and you're trying to be in a meeting with everyone. I don't know, it's just there's a lot that you can do that you wouldn't be able to do normally, right?
Yeah, or I was saying, if you IM me, I'm here to help. But I also might have something cooking on the stove. That actually happened to me once. I was a student was like, "Can you be with me right now?" And I'm like, my food is 4 minutes from being done, and I've been cooking it for a while. No, give me half hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, next week there's an IEP scheduled during music lessons. I'll be back and forth, and then activity days got moved to that day too, so it's going to be extra back and forth. So I'm like, I don't think I can make it.
I know, and that's what I always say yes to IEPs because that's my job.
I know, I feel bad.
And then I looked at It's probably the same IEP, Tamara. Because I looked at it and I was like, oh, great.
Because you have the activity days too.
Yeah.
We just want warm bodies, just so you know. We have to have a gen ed teacher.
And I know, and that's why I'm
we don't make you talk a lot.
Like all the way no. Because I was wondering like your feedback. I'm like
yeah, well that's what I'm like.
I'm like and park and pop in. Is that sufficient, Gail?
Yeah, I mean, we can't hold the meeting unless we have a complete team. So
yeah,
and I think there's some meetings. It's just an aside. There's some meetings that of certain kids that I'm like, you need to be there and you need to listen because there's a lot going on with this kid. But for most of them, you guys, a lot of times on quarter system, you don't know them well enough.
Right.
Yeah. Have significant input, and you're not going to have them long enough.
Right. That's what I was like. I was like, man, it's like going to be week 2 by then. I have no idea how she is. Like, I don't know. I don't know. It's hard, right? Okay, let's go back to this. Let's see. Did we already get all of this done? Anyway, I really like all your comments. It's true. Like, it's beautiful, and there are places to walk and think outside. And it did start out as cool and then went to terrifying. Was that yours, Bryce?
Yeah, like I said, just towards the end, it was like, what?
Well, and it is kind of terrifying to think of, like, I know your doctors would be there, and all your groceries would be there, and your gym, and your school, and and I'm like, like.
Welcome to Amazon University and Amazon Academy and
right.
Amazon.
Right.
I would argue that I don't necessarily need a beautiful place to work to be productive.
No.
I find that I can sit in a cubicle, and as long as in my head I'm where I need to be, I actually could find something like that really distracting. If I wanted to do some deep work. So
On that note too, I remember it wasn't necessarily the cubicle, but the cubicle reinforced the fact that my job was horrible. So it was kind of like
right.
So I feel like maybe that's one of those things to distract me, because I worked in some cubicles where it's like, maybe something to make me feel less like I'm just plugged into a computer would be bad. That's like when I worked at Teleperformance, for example. That was a fun cubicle.
Right. This just brought up so many things that I remember, and anyway, so then he compares the Facebook structure to Building 20. Did you guys read about that with MIT? And
I thought that was pretty cool.
What?
I thought that was pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, I did too. And Building 20 was just like just a building with basically 1 million walls, like just, I think the ultimate in cubicles, right? And then he talks about the whiteboard effect, about thinking deeply through the collaboration. And I was thinking, have I ever had deep work that I've done in collaboration? And I remembered that in 2010, somehow me and some other people in my school district, we got this grant, and we were supposed to work over the summertime, but we didn't want to work over the summertime. And so we did it in I don't know, April and May, basically. And we would get together for hours at a time. And our school hadn't even, our email through school wasn't even on Google yet. And so we used our personal Gmail to make it so that it was, collaborating through the Google Docs and Google Slides and stuff like that, and we came up with a lot of really good stuff, none of which actually worked in the classroom, because it was all way too hard for this. I mean, it was college level stuff, but it was awesome So I know that like collaboration can work in deep work. Have any of you guys had any experiences with collaboration in deep work?
One thing that I thought about, I had two scenarios, but first is like even just these book studies. For example, when Gail was like, well, this whole like leaving work from home, like that's our life. I hadn't, like, my brain hadn't tapped into that concept yet. And then when it did, it's like, yes, and all these different ideas come flooding in. And I think that's deep work to an extent of like, it's just like a gateway is opened by someone else's ideas.
Uh-huh.
This was a lot. I'm a very like hands-on person, so working online has been a transition for me in that way. But when I taught in brick and mortar, the PLC meetings that we had, we used to be able to build some of the most fascinating units. When the three of us teachers were together, and that was like such a creative and rewarding experience. But that always felt like true deep work to me as well.
Yeah.
I think our SPED team is really good because we've had to make a lot of stuff up as we go along. And I find I would love the second scenario, not the first, not the Facebook one, but the building 20 scenario, just because, and that's kind of how I feel like we are here, is that I'm doing my own thing. I'm in my own little cubicle and my own little computer, but we in SPED have a chat group, and constantly all day long, I just got one. Hey, does anybody know, or so you're going in and you can just bounce off somebody else. And I like that better than working completely. I like to work independently, but when I have an idea, I really need to bounce it off somebody else, just like you said, Anna, where you get a different perspective and you're like, oh yeah, that's totally not going to work. And I don't want to work with them all the time, but to have those colleagues that you can bounce ideas off and they can give you feedback, and then you can go back with a different perspective on whatever you're deep working about. And I love that. So the second scenario is more up my alley. I would be completely frustrated at Facebook.
Yeah, I feel like I would too. I remember I learned about Pixar when I was taking a creativity class, which was like one of my very favorite classes that I ever took. And Pixar has a similar structure to Facebook. Like they only had like one bathroom in their whole building. And like everything is really like open and like it's pro collaboration, but I think of it in a deep work mentality, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I would die, you know. So anyway.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm a little. I need people. Like I thrive off of people and energy and things and bouncing ideas, and I never really 100% trust any of my own ideas. I always like to bounce them off people and make sure that they sound sane and make sense. So, but I feel like we have a really amazing middle school team, and like we have chats between the teachers, we have chats between, we have meetings, and we just do all sorts of stuff. And like kind of like with the SPED team, we've been making a lot of it up as we go and trying to figure out what works, what doesn't. We pivoted on the fly. And I really think I think sometimes the hardest part is we all just like are so easygoing at times. We got to make a decision. I think yesterday we're at a point where we're like, well, we're all cool with it, so what do we do? Flip a coin, or we'll figure it out. So yeah, it's just really awesome, and sometimes like I'll be typing and Jessica will be typing and we'll post it and we'll say the exact opposite things, and then we come to a compromise, and it's fun, and I think it's a really great team and a really good example of that, like collaborative deep work, like you were saying, you can kind of pop in, bounce ideas, pop out, and do our own thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there definitely has to be like, I don't know, there definitely has to be some give and take for it too. You know what I mean? Like collaboration is not always a good idea in deep work. I don't know. So anyway, super interesting. And we could probably go on for a really, really long time about it, right? Maybe we will. Who knows? And so then it talks about executing like a business. Clayton Christensen was asked to do a presentation to Intel, and he, I can't remember this. Can anyone help me out with what's?
It was where he gave him some recommendations how to do his business, but he didn't tell him. He told him what to do. He didn't tell him how to do it, and that was the point that they were making.
Yeah. So how is actually the implementation, right, of how to do this. Okay. And the first thing was focus on the wildly important. The more you try to do, the less you actually accomplish, which I think is so true. So true. Does anyone else have anything to say about that?
Yeah, this literally this week. I've had so many tabs open. I'm like, did I do anything? Did I do everything? What is going on? And I have lists scratching, and that's like I feel like the more and more I try to do, the less I'm getting done. And it's to the point where I had to actually just close out all of my windows down to like one.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, I'm working on this. Everything else is just I can't get distracted. I just otherwise I end up doing nothing all day or getting like nothing finished and everything started.
Right.
I think this is something that trips up our students a lot. Hugely. Yeah. In an online setting, we say, this is what I want you to do, and then they don't do it. Things like projects, things like some the more abstract types of assignments that they are asked to do. And I would say this for sure with my students is they know what they have to do. They just can't begin to figure out how to tackle it. And that has to do a lot with their cognitive abilities and, their ability to think abstractly and that kind of thing. So, but I think it trips up a lot of kids. And I mean, I think for some, they do well if there is an example or if there is like, I've had teachers that I think Carolee Morty's good with this because she teaches like all the design type, like interior design, and that's really hard for kids to do, to think up on their own, to design something on their own. And so the art teachers do a good job with this because they'll say, this is an example of what it could look like. Now you go do yours, which I think maybe in science and English, that's not as easy to do. But I think that trips up our kids a lot.
Students were the first thing that came to my mind when I read that sentence, because I was like, oh man, like as a teacher, it's so true. The messages I get of what do I need to do? And I think as a teacher, I need to start interpreting that question of how do I do this? Or answering it that way to bypass a lot of the struggles or the hesitation in asking questions. And it made me think a lot on how I'm scaffolding the things that matter most to me in my course. And yeah, I just thought that, and especially like when we just all finished the creating a course process again, and we know what to do, we even know how to do it, but I think keeping in mind the students how to do it as we create that from now on is powerful.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, I don't know. And for me, like, there's always like a checklist to run through in my mind. You know what I mean? Like, okay, do I have everything uploaded? Is it all in the right space? Does everything have a due date? Is there, and like, but it's so finicky too. Do you know what I mean? That like, it's really easy to like miss a step, right? Or accidentally cancel the whole class like I did that one time. That was fun.
Or just not check the one box or accidentally check a box and then you don't find out about it until the last week of school when the kids actually do it. They're starting doing the project. Sorry, those are my CR classes.
Yeah, no.
Double whammy though. Like I found out all the mistakes for Q3 right before Q4, so I knew what to fix. But yeah.
I totally agree with you, Tina. I think we spend so much time in our job with the technical aspect of things.
Yeah.
You know, we have to have this in our class. We should have that. It should look like this. It should be labeled this. And I think we spend less time thinking about the pedagogy of how the students need to learn. And I think maybe Strong Mind could also sit back and take a look at that, because I don't know that they think too deeply about actually how students process information. And but you're right, we spend so much time dotting our I's and crossing our T's and worrying about whether this is indented correctly or not correctly, or that link is going to show.
I remember the first time that we talked about Strong Mind, and I was brand new and I had no idea what Strong Mind even was. And we learned that, like, if you don't indent, like, you're gonna break the system forever. And I was like, oh my gosh, how am I gonna remember that? Like, it doesn't even, you know what I mean? Like, it didn't even make sense to me. It was so aggravating. And now I know that actually it doesn't break the system. But I did break the system once. Do you remember when I did that, Gail?
I remember hearing about it.
Yeah, no, everyone has heard about it. It's like a famous little thing, you know. And I broke all of my classes, and I got a phone call from Clayton, like, early in the morning when classes had just started, and he was like, "Tina, you broke everything." And I was like, "Oh dear." So yeah, don't check that little box, guys. I don't know why there's that little box, but don't check the little box, right? Okay. So number 2 is act on the lead measures. And what I got from that was act on the SMART goals that are measurable right now. Did anyone see anything else from that?
With that, yeah, I honestly got the same concept from that. Just first of all, I think it's important to figure out how you're going to measure your goal. I know that we do that, you know, with our different goals for our departments each year, but individually, I think that looks very different. So, like, how are you going to measure and identify what's a lead and lag? You know, measure. But I also think it's good. This kind of goes back to collaboration, is that once it's measured, I think it is good to have maybe an outside set of eyes to identify what is lag and lead, or give just opinion on that, because I think we can be biased on our own work.
Totally. And I mean, I shouldn't say hate. I'm not very good at going through all of the stats like Clayton is, I know. But I recognize that there is a need to do that. Do you know what I mean? So, I don't know.
I definitely see that.
Yeah. And then number 3 says keep a compelling scoreboard, because people play different when they're keeping score. And I was like, oh, that totally makes sense, you know? So definitely keeping score is important. And you know what, guys? I have to admit, my dual credit class last quarter, my dual credit US History A class last quarter was a complete disaster. Like, I had a lot of students who got out of that class with like A's or with like B's or C's, and they didn't learn anything the entire quarter. Sorry, I can't see what's going on. And so
I think so too. But I think that's when you reflect and go, okay, let's revamp this. And I think we've all done that over the summer, where we're just like redone a bunch of stuff, because I mean, you try things, it doesn't work, you go back and fix it. I mean, you learn every time you teach something. So
and I think that the thing that I did that didn't work was how I did grade weighting. So you know, the students could get a C without even like talking to me. And I'm like, no, that's not okay. Like, you shouldn't be able to do that. You know what I mean?
And that's something you can't really fix in the middle either.
No, you
wait
can't.
it out
And
till
so
the next quarter and then go, okay, well, that's not working.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then number 4 is create a cadence of accountability. So make sure that you're reporting to the people that you are collaborating with. Anyway, do you guys have anything to say about those?
I guess, do you guys have any ideas for doing a scoreboard other than this note card example?
I don't know. I just think
I'm not great at keeping track.
Yeah, I'm not good at it either. And I'm not good at like all of the stats and all of that stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
that was one of the principles where he kind of lost me on it.
I know.
I think in our setting, if we just choose a couple criteria and just reflect on them on a regular basis so that we can see the cause and effect, you know what I mean? And that may be just, focusing on grade weights or focusing on, one thing, and then just making sure that you're checking it over on regular intervals to make sure that it's working like you planned it to work.
So one thing I do during each quarter, I go into like the people tab and I look at the activity of the students, like how much time they spent. It's a really easy way to just get a snapshot idea of who's doing stuff and who's not. And if I see a kid that hasn't logged in for a week or two, or that has never logged in, or that, is kind of off the grid, then I do a bunch of outreach. I annoy the heck out of them. And some never do pick up and respond. There's those kids that are just going to be, I'm not listening to you, I'm not talking to you, so quit calling me.
Right.
But the majority are like, oh yeah, I know, I need to do that. And then it usually stimulates some action on their part. And the ones that wouldn't pass the class because, they dropped the ball and they don't care, some of them end up passing the class and even getting a decent grade if you just do that little bit of checking in on them. Because, if you're in a brick and mortar and you notice a kid has an empty seat for a whole week, you're like, wow, did they die? Where'd that kid go? And so then you contact the parents, you ask around, you find out what's wrong with this kid. Are they really sick? So I think we need to maybe look at it in kind of the same lens or a similar lens for our kids that we don't get to see in person ever.
Yeah. Oh, I like that a lot. And I know that I have one student that I kind of acted like a counselor to her last quarter. And in this quarter, I saw that she's in a different class and I'm like, I need to make sure that she knows that we're still friends. You know what I mean? And just follow up with her and be like, okay, what have you decided to do? So I don't know. Stuff we need to do. There's always stuff to do, right? I really like this, to be lazy. And someone said, I am the laziest, ambitious person that I know. And I loved this. At the end of the workday, shut down your work until the next morning. Why? This is huge to me, guys. And I was doing this at night. Okay. So I'm definitely not perfect at it, for sure. Downtime aids insight. The scientific literature has emphasized the benefit of conscious deliberation in decision making for hundreds of years. The question addressed here is whether this view is justified. We hypothesize that it is not. And I've said before, I think I have my best ideas in this shower, right? So, I think that there's something to it. And it also
tell y'all that I graded until after 10 o'clock last night.
Yeah, like I say, I'm here I am sitting here typing this a week ago, and I'm like, why am I doing this? I am going against everything that I'm typing right now. Anyway, stupid. Reason number 2, downtime helps recharge the energy needed to work deeply. So they study people taking a nature walk during their work and how it does help them to finish the rest of their work, which is amazing, right? And then reason number 3, the work that evening downtime replaces is usually not that important. Your capacity for deep work on a given day is limited. And I was like, thank you for saying, like, there's only so much deep work that we can do in a day, right?
Yeah, I liked. It was funny because my brain, when I first read that, I was like, I don't know that that's like so true because I've done really important work late at night before. But I think at least the way that I then tried to perceive it was really consider like what is so valuable in your workflow, and can it wait till tomorrow? Can it wait until the next workday to complete it? And more times than not, probably if not always, the answer is yes.
Right. And that's it's not very often that it doesn't work out like that, right? And I really liked him talking about the shutdown ritual, about saying shutdown complete after he checks his email and checks his task list and makes sure that everything is okay for the night. And you know what? A couple years ago, gosh, when was it that Holly did a professional development on grading and on how grading could like take over your life if you let it. And I was like, yeah, it has completely taken over my life, And like she gave some things to do to make it so that it doesn't take over your life. Guys, that has changed my life so much. So, and then I really love this. Your average email response time might suffer some, but you'll more than make up for this in the sheer volume of truly important work produced during the day by your refreshed ability to dive deeper than your exhausted peers. So I thought that was really good. Okay, and I don't know how this works anymore. They've changed it, guys. I don't know how it works. Anyway, okay, so what did you guys think of all of the stuff that you read? I feel like I've just gone off on what I've thought. So why don't you guys give your insight for the last 10 minutes?
I think of everything that I read, like I said, I really liked this section. I kind of like Tamara had said, I had questions still about keeping a compelling scoreboard, and then I also had questions about creating a cadence of accountability, because I think we have accountability school-wide, but I think on an individual level, accountability looks different. It can look the same as what you're doing to answer to other people. So those were areas that I definitely still wanted to think about and maybe experiment with, whether that's this quarter or even next year or over the summer. Maybe that's a more generous time to work with it. But I think my favorite part was truly being the be lazy part, which I don't know, maybe that says a lot about my personality. But that part resonated with me just because I am such a planner. I will plan out every ounce of my day. And very rarely do I plan time to be idle and to be still. And it was just nice to hear that there's a lot of power in that.
Yeah, and I'm the same, and my husband completely balances me out sometimes. Like, I don't know, he's a lot better at just being like, okay, after dinner, let's just like read, and I'm like, no, well then we got to do this and this and and he's like, no, we don't have to do that. It's okay, like it'll be fine, so.
Oh, are you gonna say something?
Sure. Yeah, Tuesday I kind of ran into the needing to be forced to be lazy because I know I'm cinched you, right? Yeah, we came down with a stomach bug. Like my kids got it Monday, so I was up all night with all of them.
Oh, that's the
and
worst.
then I got it Tuesday night, so I was up all night. And like after 2 nights of no sleep and just like sanitizing, cleaning up after everybody, it was great fun. But I had the worst headache, and I was trying to like look at my computer and get stuff done, and I realized like this one thing is taking me like all day because I had everybody home and my head was just throbbing, and it was just like, okay, I just need to rest. This can wait till tomorrow. I can apologize to my students. Like I'm getting my email out a day late, and hopefully everything will be okay. Everybody will understand. Like
everyone is going to live.
Like this is just not happening. That's why it's taking so long. Just get some rest, take care of yourself, so that you can do it tomorrow. And so that was kind of like my lesson I learned that I guess goes along with you need to turn it off and take care of yourself sometimes so that you can come back and do a better job. And so I felt so much better. I got so much done yesterday, and yeah, I could look at a screen without
throwing up. That's a good thing.
Exactly.
Oh man, Deborah.
My eyes just hurt.
Cameron, I had it over the holiday. We all had it. Yeah, so I feel
Yeah, it is not fun.
No. I feel like my entire extended family is sick right now.
I know when I saw your son home, I'm like, oh, I wonder if he has it too.
Yeah, no, he doesn't. He has another it's another little stupid bug that we got last weekend where like you're super dizzy and you're just like achy all over, and it goes away soon. So it's not
I was like in my IMs, I'm like, sorry, this is late, get back to you, but I needed a sick
day. Yeah, you got to do that sometimes. You really do. You got to take care of yourself, you know? So.
Totally. Yeah, actually, there's another thing, and that's funny how I think we all kind of like that being lazy and separating time. I think it shows really kind of how hard but we all have a time walking away. But I also like the balance of it as well. When he was talking about breaking your day into 2 separate days, and this is something I've been trying to work on since I don't have lunch usually, and I can work on that, like the idea of walking away, getting lunch, or deep breath, go take the dogs to the park, and it's okay to go away and come back, and that refreshes it. But also to balance that with making sure when I'm here and focused, because he does talk about, on the other hand, if you keep taking breaks, keep doing this or that, you never get anything done. So I feel like it's easy to go from one all the way to the other, and finding that balance is going to be what I work on, I think.
Well, and I've realized as of lately that balance, like I think we all wish that we could have balance in our life. I think balance is unattainable, honestly. You know what I mean? Like you really just can't have balance, you know? And I've realized that lately. I'm like, you know what? Like I can't have balance in my life, you know?
I think it's seasonal. So like I think, I don't know, maybe it feels more attainable at certain seasons of life. And I also think like sometimes our idea of balance is rigid, whereas like it has to be able to adapt to our circumstances, and that means that balance isn't going to look the same way it did yesterday.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Or it's a forced balance, which isn't balance.
Right. Yeah.
It's one thing, my husband had a boss for a while there who was super strict. He was like, you are only allowed to work 8 hours a day. It's like, but when you are here, you are working hard. And the board just kept giving him like these impossible tasks that there's no way we can get this done. And I mean, they had their systems down to a T, they had to get these samples out. And so they found out like where the plane took off, where the FedEx thing and the exact time that they loaded it, and they had everything lined up so that when the sample was ready, they had like 5 people down the road to like stick it in, label it, do this, do that, literally run it straight to the airport to get it onto the plane, because they'd be given these impossible tasks, but they managed to do it because they would work so hard. He was like, nope, I'm not working anybody over 40 hours. It's strictly this time frame, but when you're here, you work hard. And I mean, he did that, and they were incredible. Like, it wasn't a huge group, but they really did work really hard, and they never had to work more than 40 hours, and they accomplished so much more. And then there's other places where, like, if you want to work 60 hours a week, go for it. But they got so much done because that was the time they were working, and that was it. That was all that is expected. But they had high expectations for that time. So it was really interesting to see how that worked out, even all pushing for all those years too. But it was a really impressive group. And yeah, it's the only place that I've ever seen really do it that way.
My husband's job that he had before the job that he has right now, like they would only allow him to work like 40 hours each week. And he's like, he's a teacher too. And so that's like never been his mindset ever. Like, I'm just going to work 40 hours, He's like, well, how about I just work till the job's done? I don't care if I get paid like overtime, whatever. Like, it's fine, right?
Yeah.
And
this
so
isn't like an hourly clock-in thing. They were all on salary, so it wouldn't have made a difference if they worked more hours.
Right, and his wasn't either, and it was his was just stupid too. But sometimes like he would get sent home like early on Fridays, and he hated it because he's like, I had more stuff that I needed to do, but they sent me home, and I don't know, it was just frustrating. So. Anyway, well, are we done?
Yeah, I think we're good to go.
Are we feeling good with it all? This was seriously like super intriguing stuff that I was like, oh, like we're not gonna have a problem filling an hour of this, right?
Yeah.
So.
And Bryce, you're good for the next 2 weeks?
The next 2 weeks, embracing boredom, I believe.
Yeah.
That'll be fun coming from you, Bryce. I'm excited.
Yeah, and hopefully I'll have a video or something that also we could do. I always like when we have like a fun other thing to talk about.
Cool.
Yeah, cool. That would be awesome.
Sounds great.
Well, thank you for doing that, and let me know.
I thought of having you guys watch that Facebook video like before we came together, but then I was like, no, this is the first week of school. Like I can't make them watch. Like I can't make them do anything else. Like let's just do it all together.
I have so many students this quarter.
Yeah. It's like we'll just do it all together. It's not a very long video.
Together. I'm okay with that.
Right. Okay. Thanks, guys.
I'll see you all next week.
See you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.